essentially, your average locomotive, at least, is not this, doesn't even have like a modern diesel engine, but is actually between 30 and 40 years old, and actually pollutes quite a lot.
And then so the ones that, so I know we'll talk about hydrogen fuel cell. I'd imagine battery electrics being pursued, but the newer locomotives, diesel, when we're talking diesel engine, is the diesel then directly powering the wheels, or is this more of like a hybrid application where diesel is essentially serving as a gen set that then is feeding electrical power to the wheels?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It is typically so that it's a hybrid system with essentially all of the modern locomotives have electric traction motors. So these are the ones that are moving the wheels, but the electricity to drive those traction motors is generated by a diesel engine, which then runs an electric generator. So it is a diesel electric hybrid.
Yeah.
And of course, you're also these days there are also like people are developing options such as running the locomotives on natural gas, LNG, where it's still being combusted in a combustion engine, and this is certainly like a step in the right direction in terms of emissions. But if you want to get to zero emissions, then you really have to look at fuels like hydrogen.
Yes, so I guess then from a technology perspective, if the final drive's already kind of the electric traction motor, as you mentioned, that at least provides a nice baseline for transitioning to some sort of a zero quote unquote tailpipe. I know that's not the term they use for real, but that's what I think about in the automotive world, like zero tailpipe emission type application for battery electric or hydrogen. How in your own mind do you weigh the benefit, or I guess I don't know if this is a universal answer of just, do you think hydrogen's better than battery electric for these applications, or how are you thinking about hydrogen internal combustion engines, or is it something that it's really application specific and depending on the region, the infrastructure, all that type of stuff, that sometimes fuel cell is going to make more sense and sometimes something else might make more sense?
Yep. So here you can say that there are actually kind of three technologies that are in a way competing with each other, or in a different way complementing each other. In Europe, about half of the railway tracks are electrified using overhead lines or catenary lines. So and you typically do that on track sections which are used really heavily, because they're essentially the investment per ton goods moved kind of is favorable.
So
then
just
you have
and correct me if I'm wrong here, but just to explain that piece. And so when you're talking about the overhead lines, essentially that eliminates the need for the diesel engine, because you're getting your electricity straight from the grid to power the traction motor, right?
Yes, exactly. And in the future, an increasing fraction of that electricity is going to be green. So in a way, that's how you would then say that you're eliminating emissions from rail transport. But I don't think that electrification using these overhead lines is like a one size fits all solution, or as like a silver bullet, because there's like all these lines which are not electrified. Essentially, all of the railways in the US has not been electrified and runs on diesel. And in Europe, the tracks which see heavy traffic have been electrified, and now each railway track that you electrify is essentially kind of giving you diminishing returns, because the traffic, you would typically do that in the order of decreasing traffic, right?
Yep.
and electrifying a kilometer or a mile of railway costs you between like $1 million and if it's a more complex track section, then maybe up to 3 million euros or dollars per kilometer. So it's really capital intensive. So you always have to kind of keep at the back of your head this calculation. Does it make sense? Like does this investment in hardware make sense, or should I instead go for a solution which is perhaps lower in capex, like a fuel cell locomotive or a battery electric locomotive, where you can avoid this really high capital expense.